Hello everyone, greetings for the day. I am Atharva Manoj Rathi. I am an engineering student pursuing production engineering BTech. So in this series of 5 courses of supply chain management specialization, as we all have studied particularly about logistics, planning, operations and sourcing. So in the final presentation of supply chain analysis and strategy at MTC. So in subsequent slides I'll take you through the basic overview and all analysis which I have done and the conclusions which I have made so far in order to make our problem statement and the efficient utilization and making the entire supply chain effective. So here we have a basic plot of what exactly is MTC and what is the major problem statement that we are facing. So according to the financial statements, we observe that the figures of revenue and expenditure, thus finally giving the bottom line of the firm, that is net earnings. Our goal is to maintain the same net earnings covering the Affordable Care Act ACA taxation which was supposed to be released at an percent of 2.3% on the revenue. So particularly we need to optimize our supply chain in order to cover that cost incurred. Next we have revenue, cost of goods sold and gross profit as constants, and thus whatever strategy we need to apply in context of other expenses and miscellaneous. So this was about the introduction of MTC and the ACA tax which we are facing. So this is the graphical representation of a typical medical supply chain. Now let's look about the modules we learned as a part of previous 4 courses. So the verticals in supply chain are logistics, operations, sourcing and planning. So in the subsequent slides we'll discuss supply chain at MTC with reference to these 4 parameters, and basically we'll correlate the logistics, operations, sourcing, planning with the current level of supply chain or current plan of supply chain which MTC is following, and our analysis and the challenges which we face and the solution which we have offered with reference to these parameters only. As particularly these 4 are the major segments which we found out that MTC needs to be focused on, and in few of them MTC is doing well, but in few of the parameters, like particularly which I'll take you through the subsequent slides, particularly for the planning and sourcing options, we need to do some changes in order to maintain that level of profitability. Here comes a basic product analysis, what MTC is dealing in and the key decision makers in the MTC supply chain. So the typical product verticals include electromedical equipment, irradiation apparatuses, surgical appliances and dental supplies. So major market customer for MTC is hospitals, clinics, third party healthcare providers, logistics and distributors. To take you forward, this is the financial analysis of financial statements of MTC. So average growth is observed to be 7.03% from 2010 with a steady growth of 4%. So particularly to summarize over here, we are doing well in terms of revenue, we are growing, but if we consider it with the inflation rate and additional taxation incurred, that's the only reason why we need to work on our profitability more. Because if we see the revenue over here, that is increasing constantly, but the net earnings, that is profit after tax, that has been reducing. So that's a symbol of trigger a red alarm. So that's the reason why we have to work in these between parameters to create an optimal supply chain. Now if we talk about current logistics scenario, so particularly logistics, the main logistics thing which happens is due to the off-site sterilization, wherein for sterilization purposes the products are given to third party. Next comes downstream distribution channels based on central and regional distribution, and particularly since MTC has provided third party logistics, this does not seem a major challenge. So overall the logistic model seems to be on a positive note, with third party being major service provider and making company focus on core verticals. So this is a typical representation of logistics at MTC. So we have our manufactured products, that is assembly. Here I have taken the both the cases. So sterilization in case we are doing it offsite, or if it's in-house, then that's not the logistic cost which we have incurred, which I'll discuss in next slide itself. Now after the sterilization, those are reverted back to medical surgical distributors or third party logistics. We have two options over here. So then the central distribution system, and then final delivery to hospitals. So the key elements, as we discussed in the very first slide: manufacturers, medical surgical distributors, third party logistics, hospitals, and other elements. So we need to discontinue offsite sterilization. That is the major thing which will save logistic cost, and in fact based on financial statements, this decision itself would cover up the 2.3 additional percent cost which will be incurring due to ACA tax. So that's a win-win situation, wherein when we'll work on other parameters of operations planning and sourcing, that would increase our profitability to a great extent, because the logistic solution which we'll implement, that itself would solve the problem of ACA taxation, which was our major problem statement back. So that's the one thing. We should discontinue the offset sterilization and focus on in-house sterilization, though there would be some cost of capital acquired due to this, but that would be one time cost, and eventually in long term that would be profitable for us. Third party logistics we need to continue, because that would allow us to focus on our core verticals, and other generic parameters would be reduction in transport time and distance, and trunk store facility, which will discuss in detail in operations module. So that is one thing which would save more amount of logistics cost incurred. To take you through the operations, so offset sterilization that is adopted, that is one of the thing, and other thing in terms of operation is inventory level optimization, because this table clearly shows the picture of overproduction scenario, wherein we are producing more goods based on production, so which nowhere will be profitable to us. So we should do it based on shipping and sales data. So if you see in the data of March April 2014, so the ending of this would be starting data, that is 1,26,075, plus the production which we make minus the shipping, so this comes out to be 1,39,201. This would be our starting for April. Now we know based on sales data that how much amount of inventory we need in April. Still we are producing excess of 34,323 in April, which is just adding another cost of inventory holding and production. So we know the sales forecast, so based on that we should plan our production in order to generate the optimal inventory level and meet the EOQ requirements. So this is the solution. So one thing we focus on is to define manufacturing based on sales data and not the previous production sales data sets. Optimized inventory level is the one thing, as we discussed before, and just in time production and lean supply is the another thing we should add on. In addition to that, trunk stores would be an good option to go with, as we discussed in logistics model as well. Taking you through the planning, analysis, and solution. So the planning data currently, we observe that MTC is clearly following the naive method for production datasets. This seems to be a bit overproduction kind of situation, as we discussed in previous slides, wherein we see large fraction of inventory is starting of new month cycle. So to sustain this, I think using exponential smoothing, which I have already discussed in the Excel file attached in week 4 assessment. For the reference, peers who wish to review it more in detail can go through that. So based on that, exponential smoothing and defining correct parameter of alpha would be efficient way. So that would be solely based on exponential smoothing and demand supply analysis on spot to generate a optimal planned supply chain. So as mentioned about forecast model, I suggest would be that of exponential smoothing, and this would first increase the profitability by reducing production and inventory holding costs. So this will achieve the ultimate goal of saving that 2.3% gone in ACA tax and boost the bottom line of MTC, as the 2.3% incurred will already get covered in the logistics optimization. In terms of sourcing, MTC falls in bracket of strategic and leverage supplier segmentation. Hospital looks for MTC in order to get quality, cost, time, that is delivery time should be less, research and customization, and other considerable parameters. So customer relationship management and after sales services is another scenario customer should focus upon. So solutions would be uh, in-house sterilization over off-site that we already discussed, and generic parameters would be procurement of raw material requirement and semi-finished according to solely based in make versus buy analysis, considering cost, delivery time and quality as prime factor. So to conclude, these are the points which I would like to put forward in order to obtain and solve our problem statement. First is cost savings that we need to do in order to compensate the ACA tax. So to cater the same, streamline logistics and planning, reduction in distribution time, in-house sterilization and optimization and implementation of supply chain strategy as discussed would be key points which I would like to put forward. So to pull the thread spun so far, this is all the things which I would like to highlight here. Thank you all for your patient hearing, happy learning, and thank you to Pierre and our instructor for this amazing series of supply chain management socialization course.